確かにここまで強烈なオーラは初めてだ。
当然だ。
だけど残念ながら相性は最悪かな。もちろんお前にとってだから。
Yo, what's going on, everybody? It's your boy Donnie over here with Anime Blinkers, and Saturdays are popping off this winter season, keeping the heat coming with the new episodes of Solo Leveling. The 6th episode just dropped, and there's nothing more I enjoy on my Saturdays than just kicking back, torching up a blinker, food in hand, relaxing while I watch the latest episode of Solo Leveling. Likewise, I hope you guys are enjoying it as well, so let's torch one up for our boy Jinwoo and jump into this episode. So this week's episode starts off with Hunter Cha pursuing Jinwoo through the gate, before cutting back to the Orc Dungeon boss and what everybody's been waiting for. Just before the boss has a chance to off the strike team captain, of course, Superman Jinwoo comes to the rescue. In the manhwa, before Jinwoo assists the strike team, he actually has to ask the captain twice before intervening. In the anime adaptation, this poor guy didn't even have to think twice about putting our boy Jinwoo in the game. He didn't even hesitate in the anime. After Jinwoo makes yet another epic entrance, we cut back to Chief Wu also following and maintaining a close eye on Jinwoo, realizing that the gate is actually a higher rank than originally suspected. He calls for a reevaluation of the gate. This is a good example of where the manhwa is slightly more visually descriptive, depicting Chief Wu's sunglasses being blown into pieces by the immense power flowing out of the dungeon. This particular moment just feels more intense in the manhwa. But I think I see what A1 Pictures is going for here. We get a scene later on towards the end of the episode where Chief Wu does that whole little cool kid thing. You know that thing, the whole little sunglass. You know that thing, the little sunglass thing. Yup. That's it right there. Cool kid alert. I mean, how could they have done that if they blew off his glasses? I see the vision. But jokes aside, if you haven't gotten a chance to read the manhwa or any manga in general, I'd highly encourage it. It's an extremely different immersible experience, plus you get to stay ahead of the anime storylines. For anybody's first manga, I definitely recommend Solo Leveling. It's super action-packed, there's not a crazy amount of reading, it's very short at only 200 chapters, and above all else, it's in color, which is super rare for manga and manhwa. After I watched the first season, I picked up the manhwa and read the entire series, and now I'm actually reading into the Solo Leveling sequel series, which is called Solo Leveling Ragnarok. We'll be actually covering a lot of manga on this channel as I start to cover other things like JJK, Dawn to Dawn, Chainsaw Man, Kagurabachi, Boruto 2 Blue Vortex, just to name a few. And then of course, we can't go one episode without missing system notifications. Iron has the ability Epic Taunt and it activates in almost every fight, which in this case it did actually in the manhwa, but it was cancelled by the Orc's debuff, which was also a system notification that activated that was left out. Now this episode didn't really have any major differences from the manhwa besides one anime only scene towards the end, but there was a small scene where one of the hunters says that Jinwoo moves like the Vice Guildmaster. And in the manhwa, this is actually the purple-haired girl who makes that statement. Small difference. As the fight continues, besides Jinwoo's generals, the rest of his forces are pretty much at a disadvantage to the orcs, but through replenishing his mana, he's able to defeat the orc army. He uses a mana replenishing potion right before the boss starts glitching out. We saw this happen in the beginning of the season with the elf as well. If you notice, it only happens when Jinwoo is around. I don't want to spoil anything for the anime only fans out there, but this will get further examined and explained later on in the story. Next we get a scene in the anime that cuts back to Guildmaster Choi being alerted to the dungeon situation. If you notice, when his aide alludes to the fact of them seeking help from the other guilds, she has a negative connotation, implying that it's not good to ask other guilds for help. They look at this as a sign of weakness if a hunter guild needs to ask for help from another. Cool little detail that they added. It gives us some more screen time with Guildmaster Choi, who's a manhwa fan favorite, and does indeed emphasize weakness in guilds if they are forming alliances, which will pay off later on in a small way. We see in the anime adaptation Jinwoo referred to his shadow generals as his personal guard instead of shadow generals. The translation you see below is actually off of Captain Jack Sparrow website. The official Crunchyroll translation, which I cannot show below, does in fact say shadow guards, not shadow generals like the manhwa. I assume they did that as to not confuse the ranks of the soldiers, even though general sounds way more badass, and technically, while the higher ranks might only be knight level, they are in fact Jinwoo's shadow leaders, so the title, not the rank of general, is fitting if you ask me. But note that the shadow soldiers can also level up similar to Jinwoo. Currently up to this point in the anime and episode, the highest shadow rank is elite knight rank. You have the normal shadow infantry that are just a regular rank, and then you have shadow mages which go to the elite rank, and then you have soldiers like Egress and Iron being knight rank level. And finally, we get some system notifications. They don't even put it up there long enough for you to be able to read it, which is perfectly fine. As long as the viewer knows that something happened, you see Jinwoo basically explain it really quickly after anyways. So far, the animation team in studio, A1 Pictures, has done a phenomenal job animating the series. They added a couple sequences into this fight. There was one small thing that they changed, which in my opinion was a pretty cool change up. In the anime, he wraps up the boss with a chain and slams him down, as opposed to the manhwa, he goes full on One Punch Man again and knocks the boss down before having his former guards kill him. Before Jinwoo realizes that his secret's out and everybody including Hunter Cha and Shifu are watching him, he adds the boss to his shadow army, giving him the name Tusk. Tusk.
Drake?
Personally,
Drake?
not really a fan of this name. His name in the manhwa was Fang, and it's always going to be Fang in my heart. It. But I guess it doesn't really matter. As the dungeon scene comes to a close and all the hunters are okay, I think this is a good time to bring up the pacing of this season. But before that, can we take a moment just to give it up for Chief Wu? Like, this man literally had his sunglasses blown off in the manhwa and miraculously had another pair ready to go just for the perfect dramatic moment in the dungeon. Or maybe he's just that cool that they drew him with a second pair in his pocket. Funny little error I noticed on a second reread. I've seen a lot of comments on Reddit and even some people on YouTube saying that this season is moving fast or the pacing's too quick, and I just like to point out the fact that Solo Leveling in general has a lot less dialogue than some other animes and a lot more fight scenes. So while it might seem like the story's moving fast, I'd say that that's true. It's a fast-paced story. There's a lot of fighting, there's a lot of action, and our boy Jinwoo is a man of many fists and few words. You can see the difference in exposition here comparing a panel from Jujutsu Kaisen to a panel from Solo Leveling. There hasn't been much but a few minor scenes that have been cut from the anime adaptation thus far. One actually being in this week's episode, and that's Jinhoo's conversation with Jinwoo gets cut very short at the end. There was another scene that was cut in episode 5 where we actually meet Jinhoo's cousin, which also involves a conversation regarding Jinhoo's family guild, the Yujin Guild. I'm of the personal belief that they cut those to put them in a better sequence for future episodes, but we'll just have to wait and see. This episode ends with superstar Min Sung Lee being shown ready for his hunter evaluation, which he's a character that was briefly introduced earlier in the manhwa. Again, this was also cut with that same conversation with Jinwoo and his cousin. And that about wraps up today's video, folks. This episode was highly anticipated, as is most of the season. There's a lot of major fights yet to come, and we'll be here for every single one of them. If you enjoyed this video, do your boy a favor, hit that like button, drop a comment if Jinwoo is that guy. Come on now.